Sometimes I look at other people and I wonder how awesome it must feel to know that to go through life without ever worrying about being arrested or being brought into the criminal justice system. I kind of think about that because that's not my life. It hasn't been my life ever since authorities arrested me back in August of 1987. My name is Michael Santos, and I'm the founder of Prison Professors. We create digital content and courses to help justice-impacted people get the best possible outcome. I didn't have those kinds of lessons when I started my journey. When I started my journey, I just really never even believed that I would go into the system. It seemed more likely, as I've written many times before, it seemed more likely that I would contract leprosy than I would ever be arrested. But that was back in the mid-1980s. And since then, our nation's really ramped up its use of the Department of Justice. And it's brought many more people in. And once a person comes into the system, that person has to be thinking every day about what can I do to make sure I never go in again, or if I'm going through it right now, what steps can I take to position myself for a better outcome? And the sooner somebody starts asking those kinds of questions, the more effective that person can become in engineering a strategy and building a pathway. That pathway is going to require adjustment. And that's what our lesson today is all about, adjustment. Let me read the blurb. You see, life doesn't always go our way. We can strategically and deliberately create and engineer plans with the best intentions. Then, external forces can change the environment. When those changes come, we are responsible for how we respond. We can complain with the "it's not my fault" mentality, or we can adjust and succeed despite the changes we encounter. I am urging you to start thinking today about how you're going to influence a better outcome in your life, regardless of what stage you're in right now. If you're going into this system, or if you're deep within this system, or if you're getting ready to come out of this system, remember, once you're a justice-impacted person, you're always going to exist in some database. There's always going to be some agency or group of people that are going to look at you cynically. They're going to look at you and wonder whether you're doing something wrong. This is something that I have learned, and it's something I have prepared to overcome. But the only way I could prepare to overcome would be if I was willing to adjust. Now, it's very hard for me to imagine not being somebody who always feels as if he's a target of the criminal justice system. That's just my life. It can't be any other way for somebody who went through 26 years in prison. And I ask you to be thinking about, in what ways is the system looking at you? And let's take a look at today's lesson so we can have a follow-up conversation after I read it. In August 2012, authorities let me transfer from the federal prison in Atwater, California, to a halfway house in San Francisco. I had 9,135 days of prison behind me. I had another year to serve in the halfway house. After 9,500 days of living as a prisoner, I would transition to supervised release for 7 years, then parole for 19 years, then to special parole for another 3 years. Those were the complications that followed the bad decisions of my youth. My plans at the start of my sentence helped me climb through the journey. Decisions I made along the way helped me to build confidence and strength. I felt ready to grow and prosper. By my late 40s, I had spent more of my life in prison than in society. I had a master's degree, publishing credentials, and an insane work ethic. As my wife drove me to the halfway house, I reiterated a goal that I had been telling her. Within 5 years, we'll have our first $1 million in assets. If I had not sown the seeds early, such a goal would be ridiculous. I'd never held a job. My credit score was 000. And since neither the internet nor smartphones existed before my imprisonment, I'd never sent an email or watched a YouTube video. Nevertheless, the early preparations endowed me with the confidence to succeed. Within my first month in the halfway house, I made my first real estate acquisition. How? Well, I used the same skills and commitment that powered me through prison. We create our opportunities with the stories we tell. Our experiences along the journey reveal our stories more than our words. The more deliberately we plan, the more likely we succeed. Within 2 years, I had the first $1 million in assets. Within 5 years, I had $5 million in assets and $3 million in equity. Then, external forces brought an abrupt change to my circumstances. I invested $1.4 million to become a limited partner in an overseas land development project. That investment represented less than 30% of the assets that I had acquired since being released from prison. I planned to build a business I would call Prison to Paradise and convert my investment into a project that would yield more than $10 million. Then, 3 months after I made the $1.4 million investment, the Federal Trade Commission launched an unexpected lawsuit against the general partner of the real estate development. That lawsuit led to an asset freeze, and in 2020, that lawsuit led to a settlement, costing me $5 million in assets and $3 million in equity. Despite the plans I made, external forces intervened, and I had to adjust. I began rebuilding by following the same principles that carried me through the journey. Complaining or living as a victim does not yield results. Adjusting to changed circumstances helps us recover and grow with new plans and new execution strategies. So here are my questions for you. What unexpected changes have you encountered? In what ways did you adjust to the change? In what ways does your adjustment to changed circumstances reveal your commitment to succeed? In what ways does your response to changed circumstances align with the way that you define success? And finally, what strategy helps you recalibrate after a reversal of fortune? And the word of the day is abrupt. Use abrupt in a sentence. But more importantly, think about how these daily discussion lessons apply to your life. If you're working through these lessons inside of a jail or a prison, I urge you to don't just skim through them. I want you to think about them, because where you are right now isn't necessarily where you're going to be next year or in 5 years or in 10 years. In the Prison Professors programming, we feature many people who have been incarcerated, who had initially had sentences of life terms. They didn't have a release date, but now they're home. They're outside, they're building a life, they've got a family, and the reason they were able to do it is because they succeeded in becoming masters of adjustment. They understood, what do they have to do to build a better life? Just like you have to be thinking, in what ways can you adjust today to build a better life? The more you think about this, the earlier you think about this, the more effective you're going to be at preparing for success, at adjusting in ways that allow you to handle some of the complications that follow for somebody that goes into this system. One thing I never do is make excuses. In my life, I always say everything that is good in my business, I will say it's the result of my team members, all the people that work together to make Prison Professors a product or a service that can help advance this goal of serving justice-impacted people. But if there's anything that goes wrong, I will say it's my fault. I will take responsibility, because I had to learn how to do that while I was going through prison. Regardless of where authorities held me, I understood the responsibility rested right on my shoulders. If I wanted to get out of prison differently, I had to sow the seeds that would lead to something better. And I think you would be really well served if you had that mindset as well, regardless of what stage of the journey you're in. So I do encourage you to work through all of our courses at Prison Professors. They're available free to anybody who wants to invest the time and the energy to learn. If you're watching this on YouTube, visit us at Prison Professors. Same thing if you're listening on iTunes. Visit us. You'll find an abundance of information that you can use, I hope, to help yourself. But my heart really goes to those people who are locked inside jails and prisons across America. I want to provide you with tools, tactics, and resources that you could use to leverage your way to a better outcome. My name is Michael Santos. I'm the founder of Prison Professors, and on behalf of our entire team, I want you to know that I believe in you.